You are standing at the threshold of what most Americans are told is the greatest financial decision of their lives. The keys are in your hand. The paperwork is signed. And somewhere deep in your chest, there is this feeling: relief, pride, maybe a little terror. You did it. You own a home. But here is what nobody told you at the closing table. The price on that contract? That is just the beginning. What comes after, the slow, steady, invisible drain on your finances, is a story the real estate industry has very little interest in telling you. This is that story. Let us start with the moment most people think the spending stops. You have just bought a $400,000 home, 20% down, mortgage signed, you are in. What you may not have fully absorbed yet is that the closing costs alone, the legal fees, the title insurance, the lender charges, average between 2 and 5% of the purchase price. On a $400,000 home, that is between $8,000 and $20,000, gone before you have spent a single night under your new roof. That money does not build equity. It does not appreciate. It simply vanishes. And this is the first hidden cost, the price of entry that most buyers absorb without ever fully naming it. Now you are in the house. And the house, as any longtime homeowner will tell you, is hungry. It always needs something: a water heater, a roof, a furnace that chooses the coldest week of January to give up. Financial planners use a rule of thumb here. Budget 1 to 2% of your home's value every single year for maintenance and repairs. On a $400,000 home, that is $4,000 to $8,000 a year. Every year. That is not a surprise expense. That is the cost of ownership, hiding in plain sight. And we have not even talked about the mortgage yet. At a 7% interest rate, which is right where rates sat for much of 2023 and 2024, a buyer who puts 20% down on a $400,000 home will pay over $375,000 in interest alone over 30 years. Let that settle. You borrow $320,000. You pay back nearly $700,000. The interest over time can actually exceed the original price of the home itself. Most people know mortgages involve interest. Almost nobody does this math before they sign. Here's a concept that does not get enough airtime: opportunity cost. It means when you choose to use money one way, you give up whatever else that money could have done. Your 20% down payment is now locked in your walls. It is not in the stock market. It is not compounding. Over 30 years, $80,000 invested in a broad market index fund historically could have grown to several times that amount. That is not an argument against buying a home. It is an argument for understanding what owning one actually costs. Property taxes are the bill that never goes away. Unlike your mortgage, which ends after 30 years, property taxes are forever, as long as you own the home, and they vary wildly depending on where you live. In New Jersey, the effective property tax rate runs around 2.23% of assessed value. On a $400,000 home, that is nearly $9,000 a year, every year, just to keep what you already paid for. Then there is insurance. For most of American history, homeowners insurance was an afterthought, a modest annual premium, almost never used. That world is disappearing. Over 30% of homes in the United States now carry significant exposure to climate-related risk: wildfire, flooding, wind damage, and insurers have noticed. The math has changed, and they are responding. In 2023, several of the largest insurance companies pulled out of California and Florida entirely, not raised their rates, left, which means hundreds of thousands of homeowners were suddenly thrown into state-run last resort pools, often with higher premiums and worse coverage. Insurance is no longer a background cost. For millions of Americans, it is becoming a crisis, a line item that can make an otherwise affordable home suddenly unaffordable, seemingly overnight. If you live in a neighborhood governed by a homeowners association, and roughly 73 million Americans do, there is another layer of mandatory cost waiting for you: HOA fees. These are monthly charges that pay for shared amenities, maintenance of common areas, and building reserves. Nationally, the average runs between $200 and $300 a month. That is between $2,400 and $3,600 a year on top of everything else with no opt-out. You agreed to it when you bought, but the fee you saw at closing is not necessarily the fee you will pay forever. HOAs can raise dues, and they can do something far more alarming: issue what is called a special assessment. A special assessment is a one-time charge levied on every homeowner in the community to cover a major unexpected expense: a crumbling parking structure, a failed elevator, an aging roof on a shared building. You do not get to vote no. You either pay or you face liens on your home. The Surfside condominium collapse in Florida in 2021 sent shockwaves through the condo market. In its aftermath, new state laws required HOAs to fully fund their reserves, and owners across Florida began receiving special assessment notices in the tens of thousands of dollars. People who thought they owned an affordable home suddenly found themselves facing bills that threatened everything, not because they made bad decisions, because the hidden costs, the ones nobody put in the brochure, finally showed up all at once. Now let us talk about the moment most homeowners actually look forward to: the sale. You bought the home. You lived in it. It went up in value. Now you are cashing out. Except, and this is where the math gets uncomfortable, selling a home is extraordinarily expensive. Historically, sellers paid the real estate agent commissions for both sides of the transaction, their own agent and the buyer's agent. That traditional rate hovered around 5 to 6% of the sale price. On a $400,000 home, that is up to $24,000 paid out of your proceeds at closing. In 2024, a landmark antitrust settlement with the National Association of Realtors restructured how those commissions work, ending the old model where sellers automatically covered both sides. But agent fees have not disappeared. They have simply become more negotiable and more visible. So when you add it all up, the cost to buy, the cost to sell, the transaction fees on both ends, you are looking at somewhere between 8 and 10% of the home's value, just in friction, just in the price of moving money from one owner to another. That means your home has to appreciate significantly before you have actually made anything. The appreciation you see on Zillow is not profit. It is gross value, before the costs of getting in and getting out eat into it. And if you sell within 3 years of buying, research consistently shows that most homeowners in that situation do not break even. They lose money, even if the home's price went up. The costs simply outrun the gains. None of this is meant to be a horror story. Homes have made many families wealthy. In many markets, over long periods of time, home ownership has been a reliable path to building net worth. Stability, roots, community, these are real, and they are worth something that spreadsheets cannot capture. But the promise sold to most buyers that a home is automatically a great investment rests on a very selective version of the math. It counts the appreciation. It forgets the interest. It ignores the maintenance. It glosses over the taxes, the insurance, the closing costs, and the commission. When you add all of those back in, the picture changes. The home that you thought was quietly making you money may have been costing you more than you realized, year after quiet year. So let us go back to the beginning, back to those keys, back to that feeling at the closing table. There were likely two kinds of people in your life when you made that decision. One group said, buy, build equity, stop throwing money away on rent. The other group hesitated, ran numbers, asked uncomfortable questions. Both groups had a piece of the truth, and both were missing something. The truth, the one this video has been working toward, is not that one group was right and one was wrong. It is that the right answer depends entirely on math that most people never do. And that gap between the decision made and the math ignored is where the hidden cost lives. The single insight that lives at the center of everything you have just heard is this: a home is not automatically an investment. It is an asset with real carrying costs, real risks, and real alternatives that deserve to be weighed honestly. The people who come out ahead are not the ones who bought or the ones who rented. They are the ones who went in with open eyes, who counted the interest, who budgeted for the roof, who understood what they were actually signing. Those keys you are holding, they are worth exactly what you understand them to cost. Not a dollar more, not a dollar less. That is the math nobody puts on the brochure, and it is the only math that actually matters.